Hey guys, today we're actually going to be going over two different resumes of mine, one from early on in my career and one from a more current version of my resume, with the intent of how to actually create a proper resume based on where you're at in your career to make sure that you're getting noticed and HR is giving you callbacks and things like that, and make sure that your puppies are very engaged in the conversation as well. You can see Boise on the chase there is very enthused about the resumes. But sorry, I'm watching the dogs today. But yeah, so we're going to be going over that. And one thing to note is this is actually from my latest course, the 100 Front-End Interview Questions Challenge, where we have a whole job prep section where not only do we talk about job search strategies, cover letters, but resumes, and there's about 5, 6, 7 other videos that fall into that category of how you can prepare for those interviews. So if you like this, there's a link in the description below where you can check it out. So let's talk a little bit about what makes a good software development resume. There's quite a few things, and we're going to look at some examples after this first section here. But what you're going to need your resume to do is stand out, and there's a few ways that we can do that. One, you want to clearly have your technologies that you're comfortable with and that you can work in professionally organized, and be one of the very first things that they see on that page so they can see that you qualify for the job. Because honestly, a lot of these HR people that are looking at this, because that's the first sort of wave of defense, is human resources. Typically doesn't get right into the hiring manager's hand, except maybe at really small companies. That's the first thing they're checking and looking for. Two is when you're talking about your previous experience, you're going to want to have bulleted points, sort of not only targeting those technologies, but actually attacking certain things that are in the typical job description. So, if you're like applying to be a front-end dev, for instance, what I would do is I would go look at about 100 different applications in the area that you're looking at, and you'll see that they start to ask for similar things. Utilize REST APIs, integrate this technology, this and that, and you want to target those bullet points to really hit that. And that's not going to change too much by job category. So you want to have targeted bullet points, and if you can, stats in there as well to make it more official. 3, you want to have certifications, you want to have achievements, you want to have that sort of extra stuff to show that you're passionate and that you stand out. Now, depending on what part of your career you're in, some of that may or may not be sort of relevant, but personal projects, of course, are another great thing. One thing that you're going to put a lot of emphasis on as you grow in your career. But typically, when you're starting your career, you can fit pretty much everything that you want to say on a single page. And as you continue to grow, you may have multiple pages, but you can still fit quite a bit of stuff on there. So for me, for many years up until recently, until this last job I've had, I've always used a single page resume. But what I was finding is, as my side projects grew, as my certificates grew, as my achievements grew, as all these things that made me stand out as a candidate grew, I was talking with recruiters, and they were saying, hey, well, why isn't this on your resume so I can see it? And that was when I jumped to a multi-page resume. But we're going to look at two different examples, one a single page and one a multi-page, and sort of talk a little bit about why I do the things I do on my resume and how, from experience, they have helped me, and things I've learned that has hurt me as well. All right, so I think starting with a resume that might be a little bit more less experienced, one of my older resumes would be an excellent place to get started, give you some ideas of what to include on your resume. You'll see here that we have all contact information minus my phone number, but you'll have your phone number, LinkedIn, GitHub, and if you're willing to relocate, put that in there. Otherwise, sometimes you'll get your items thrown out. I include a little introductory statement right here. This is sort of, I look at it as almost a mini cover letter. So tell them why you're great. Tell them why they should hire you. You have a portfolio. Now include full links. A lot of times people don't include full links and just put like, oh, this and that. You have to understand, people are going to print this out, not only have it digitally, so you want them to be able to type it in and put it in there. Now, you want to have your technical skills be one of the very first things. Now, I prefer the 2-column the 2-column versus a single column, because we want to keep this, if you think that you have enough stuff to go on 2-3 pages, you can see we're going to have quite a bit of stuff on our resume here. But so to do that, we used a 2-column sort of grid here, and technical skills clearly broken up into various things. And you'll see in my resume, when I went to multi-page resume from this, I went one step further. But you can, for the most part, work with a single page for quite some time. And so technical skills is important. Personal projects are important. And you'll notice that even our personal projects have bullet points, right? Just sort of talking about what it is that we're doing, what it accomplished, let people know. And then if you have work experience, I like to include a little description as to what the company is. So part of the reason for this being is that you have to remember, you're going to HR. They like domain knowledge. If you've worked in the, in this case, the marketing or direct sales industry, that's something they're going to like. That's something they're going to be impressed by if that's their business model, and they're going to gravitate towards you. Now, notice how here we have the technologies, which are still over here, but we're always talking about them in our bullet points here. And we're trying to explain where and when we use these technologies, and oftentimes how. So as we go to the other resume and we have more room, we can go and give additional examples. But notice here how they're bulleted, and notice how we actually bolded, because the average recruiter spends something like 9 seconds looking at your resume before passing on it. So you want things to pop out that hit those keywords. Same thing with this one and this one right here. Education. So if you have any, at this time I was doing the Bachelor's of Software Development at Western Governors University. If you have any education, always include it. But keep in mind that if you are like me, where certificates are going to make up a large portion of your resume, you can throw it in this education, or if you're self-taught, you can throw it in this general education bucket. But typically, unless it's a computer science degree, it doesn't really matter. It's just a check. So you can put this towards the end here, and same thing with volunteer experience. But what I want you to take away is having links, having willing to relocate, having bulleted points, having a clear section of technical skills and personal projects, and getting a lot on this page. So I've seen people that have the same amount of content here on about 4 pages handed in, and I think this is clean. I think it's evenly broken down. You can see what's going on, and we're sort of hitting all the key points. So that was my second job. At this point, I think I had like a 1.5 years experience. So 1.5 years experience, I included everything that I thought was relevant on my resume. And honestly, I probably could have dropped this off. This technology trainer, and expanded on personal projects, and maybe moved education or volunteer experience down there. But this is how I did it at the time. So let's jump into my resume nowadays. It's going to look very similar. You can see that I've now expanded out as my skills have grown. And you also notice that my technical skills is always at the top. The reason for this is, again, you got to hit those HR marks of, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is what I'm working with, this is how I go. Now, I'd still encourage you to bold it in here. I just didn't, because the site I use, called novoresume.com, it's a paid templating site that keeps track of all this. They store this as text and not as HTML, right? So I would love to have these bold, but every time I update my resume, I have to then change it. But you'll see here, and this is my most recent job, so I don't have a ton of things to talk about, which is why they're more general, because I've only been with the company about 6 weeks when I updated my resume for this video. But same stuff. We have a nice title here to showcase how we're different. And literally, so with this introductory statement, someone will tell you to take it off, but to me, this is a mistake, because I think that here you can really sell yourself. Like, I try to start strong. I teach and mentor tens of thousands of students monthly on software engineering. Something that people, if they read that first 10 seconds, they say, I'm going to look at the rest of this guy's resume. have built numerous courses, constant learner, interested in team, and then I talk about what it is that I'm looking for. And then I include this little joke here. This is like, if you can make someone find you're interesting, and this has gotten me so many calls back, this 2006 Time Magazine Person of the Year, because they want to find out more. They want to know, are you really? Or they'll look it up. They'll go, 2006 Time Magazine Person of the Year, really? This guy's probably pretty good. And they go something like 2006 Time Person of the Year, and then they find out that it was you. That was essentially, that was it. So it's a little bit of humor, a little bit of showing people, that, hey, I'm, let's have fun, let's be interesting. And I think, it sounds kind of silly, but it has really worked quite well. So break it out, and again, bullet points. Look at something that's a little bit more broken out. Again, we have all the technologies we're using. We talk about integrating, specific items that we're handling. We talk about specific feature set that might be impressive. I was only at this job for 3 months before they laid my team off, but you can see that we have various pieces going over. And one thing I would say is that as you're building your resume, sometimes this stuff will get lost. Your resume is a living document. So if you go and finish a cool feature set, you may not remember it a year from now when you're looking for a job. Go update your resume, just throw it on there and see what's going on. But again, you can see we're talking about the technologies, we're talking about bulleted points, going over things. I like to also include a contact number for previous jobs, because sometimes they will ask for a letter of recommendation. They will ask for what's the word I'm looking for? References. So just include it at each job. Your boss, your boss's boss, whoever that you feel comfortable speaking to you. Now, another thing, again, here's our personal projects. Personal projects will be on my resume forever and ever and ever and ever. And you can see now by this time, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 software jobs, and then this was like my sort of first introduction, 5 on here, all talking about different things and going in depth in it. And then we have my personal projects with bulleted points, giving insight as to what they are, why they're important, what I've covered, and really selling the point. Certificates. This is how I make up for my education. This is how I make up for the fact that I don't have a degree. I have lots of certificates. And you'll notice not only do I have the date of when I got the certificates, I typically, if I'm working on a certificate, I'll actually put in progress for that date and still give a description there. That way I can still get the benefit to show that I'm learning. I can discuss this. It could be something that they're interested in having a candidate that has, even if I haven't completed it yet. In this case, I don't have any on there, but something to consider. I also, of course, give a little bit of detail here to provide a little bit of background. So people say like, oh, what about, how do you use these certificates from Free Code Camp to really impact your profile? Here, here's the very first one that I really got, which was in 2016. I give a brief description. Estimated 500 hours of coursework that includes these technologies, 10 projects, and algorithm problems. So you give a little brief description explaining what it is, and they go, 500 hours, 300 hours, 300 hours. It's 1,100 hours of just what this guy's been working on. Clearly, he's hacking it out and doing some cool stuff. Achievements, anything that's sort of unique and falls into the achievement category. Some of the stuff that I had this in my one of my jobs because it's a workplace activity, but I brought it down here to achievements because I wanted it to shine a little bit. And this plan, promote, participate thing wasn't something that was really, I couldn't really find a place for it other than achievements. Volunteer experience. This is something I'm very a big part of, and I encourage people to volunteer. And then I also have 2 references with quotes down here. You could include it, not include it. This would be something that I'd be okay dropping off here. But currently, I don't have enough certificates or additional personal projects to remove them. But again, these are references. These are people who will speak to your character as a developer. So, some of the major takeaways. Again, bullet points, technologies clearly broken out, links, willing to relocate, a very, go hard in this very first sentence. Add some personality if you can. You could see that I have like a little photo here. Some people tell me to use a more professional photo. I like to add humor, but I can see the argument here to not have that.
And I've been told that it's helped me, and I've been told that it's hurt me. So it all just sort of depends. Personal projects, always bullet points for those, much like experience. This is your experience, whether you already have experience or don't have experience. So you need to do bulleted points for that. Certificates, description of why they matter. And if you have a lot of items and you're like, well, you know what, I like the 1 column versus 2 column, and you can make it work, and you don't have any work experience, your projects, your certificates, those go above your current work experience. Include just a single job. Like, hey, you're like me going from pizza delivery driver to developer. You'll have that one job on there, not all your job history, because that's not relevant. You just have the one job on there to show what you're currently doing, that you're working, and that you're employable, and go from there. So that's just some tips on how you might do your resumes and how you might organize it, and some things to consider. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to check out my latest course, the 100 Front-End Interview Questions Challenge, to make sure that you ace those front-end interviews. Smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.